Hello my dear friends, you're on the Military Summary channel, and this short video we're going to discuss probably the most terrible and the most difficult night since the beginning of the special military operation. A lot of casualties, a lot of strikes, a lot of losses, a lot of the most important death among the innocent people took place during the previous night. And the reason of that situation was the Ukrainian position and the situation that Ukrainians created in the Black Sea. I'll remind you that Ukrainians during the previous 48 hours established a military blockade of every single port of Russian fleet in the south of Russia, and they attacked the civilian ship also in the vicinity of Crimea. Of course, this is not like 100% blockade, but anyway, this situation caused damage to the Russians' reputation and the Russian situation controlling this territory. As an act of revenge, as an act of response, the Russians took a decision to strike the Ukrainian positions all over the entire Ukraine. And the first updates we started receiving from the Kupiansk front line, from this bridgehead. As you know, during the previous 48 hours, during the previous weeks, the Russians launched significant offensive operation in the vicinity, in the area of Kupiansk bridgehead. The Russians are attacking in Sinkovka, Kislovka, Novoselovska, Karamzinovka bridgehead, and so on. And the Russians managed to achieve some advances. And the thing is that there are a lot of losses among the Ukrainians. We remember the numbers of report of Ministry of Defense. I'll try to analyze these numbers every single day. And we remember that recently the level of losses from the Ukrainian side have been increased significantly. And if you have a lot of wounded soldiers, the first thing you need to have a local operational, let's call it, blood transfusion center. And one of such blood transfusion centers was located in Kupiansk, where the Ukrainians were accumulating their wounded soldiers and made every necessary things to save their lives. And during the previous night, the Russians made a guided bomb, or probably maybe drone attack or missile attack against that center, and a lot of Ukrainian wounded soldiers were killed as a result of that attack. As an act of revenge from the Ukrainian side, the Ukrainians took a decision to start bombing and shelling Donetsk, the capital of DPR. And the Ukrainians started bombing that settlement using cluster rounds. They were bombing the civilian area using cluster rounds. This is the military crime. Anyway, there were a lot of losses. A lot of buildings were destroyed. You see the fire inside of the building. Also, we got the video of the fire on some buildings. So this is a crime that was made by the Ukrainians. This is the traces of cluster munition, cluster rounds somewhere in the central part of the settlement. And the worst thing that Ukrainians were attacking the central part of Donetsk, not the edge, not the places of accumulation of Russian forces. Basically, that was a real attack against the civilians, not against the military forces, because there are no military forces in the central part of Donetsk, in the heart of that settlement. As an act of revenge, the Russians launched another massive missile attack all over the entire Ukraine. The Russians were attacking the Ukrainians using drones, missiles, Kinzhal, and hypersonic missiles, and so on. And the Ukrainian sources are saying that during the previous night there were around 15 missile air carriers in the skies that were attacking the Ukraine. And basically, this is the highest number of air carriers that were attacking the Ukraine since the beginning of the special military operation. Around 100 missiles were launched in the territory of Ukraine. And during the night, we started receiving updates about the explosions on the western part of Ukraine. The first updates we start receiving from Starokonstantinov, from this area. On this picture, you see the places with the red squares, which means the fires in this area. The fires took place in the vicinity of the airport. And I'll remind you that this airport, is the base of the 7th Aviation Brigade. That this is the only brigade that has Su-24 in their squads, in their teams, which were upgraded to use Storm Shadow missiles. So that were the first updates about the situation. Later, during the night, we started receiving more updates from the western part of Ukraine. We got some updates from Rovna. The Russians attacked with missiles, with Kinzhal, the Ukrainian industrial area and very powerful railway logistic hub. As a result of that attack, very big ammo depot was destroyed. We see the signs of fire in that area. Probably the Ukrainians accumulated there the Western weapon and Western munition and Western tanks and armored vehicles. The same situation took place in the south, in the vicinity of Kamenetsk-Podolsky. Another, as you can see, industrial area, very powerful railway the logistic hub. As a result of that attack, more explosions took place in that area, even more than in Rovno. And almost the same situation took place in the western part of Ukraine, in the vicinity of Ivano-Frankovsk. Another industrial area was attacked by the Russians. A lot of fire, a lot of weapon was destroyed. So that was a critical damage that was dealt to the Ukrainians. Furthermore, the president of Ukraine reported about explosions in Zaporozhye and Dnipro, but we haven't received any video or photo confirmations of those attacks. Now let's move to the ground. The Ukrainians during the previous night also launched and made an attempt to attack the Russian positions in Robotyne, and the Russians reported that somewhere at 8 a.m. of the local time there was another wave of attack. Currently there is a very fierce clashes, and we'll see the results of that clashes probably in a few hours. Also, the Russians published very interesting piece of information regarding the Ukrainian drones. As we discussed, that both sides, either the Russians and the Ukrainians, took a decision to develop completely different branches of one technology by the name of drones. The Russians took a decision to develop the heavy drones. The Ukrainians took a decision to invest their time in the light drones. And we saw a lot of videos during the previous weeks how Ukrainian attacks against the Russian armored vehicles using the light drones, and that's still a very big problem for the Russians. And currently the Russians have already completed the development of electronic warfare equipment that are able to suppress Ukrainian drones, and this electronic equipment could be established on every single armored vehicle that the Russians use. This is a small box, as you can see. This box can be established, let's say, on the back of a Russian tank, and this equipment shown very significant results, and basically this is the real defense equipment for Russian armored vehicles against the Ukrainian light drones. And as I understand, currently there are still no real production of this type of equipment, but by the end of this year the Russians will be able to establish this equipment almost in every single armored vehicle, and then the Ukrainians will start losing their drone battle, and their drones will be completely useless against the Russian armored vehicles, of course, if they are not able to find another solution. Furthermore, the Russians published the video how they managed to capture and to evacuate the Western Mrap, this type of armored vehicle. Another armored vehicle was captured, and currently the Russians are redeploying this type of vehicle somewhere to the, let's say, engineering offices. Now we're moving to the Vremivka tactical bridgehead. This morning the Ukrainians also launched another offensive operation in this area. At 5 a.m. after very massive artillery preparations, the Ukrainians started the storming of Urozhaine, and as I understand, the Ukrainians will try to capture the settlement today, not in a week. Today is the deadline for the Ukrainians to complete the storming and clearing operation of Urozhaine, a very massive attack. Before that, the Ukrainians were, during the previous days and nights, were bombing and shelling Stara Mlynovka. If we increase the number of updates since the beginning of August, we see how the Ukrainians were completely focused on Stara Mlynovka, trying to force the Russians to move their armored vehicles from this area. We discussed a lot of time the attacks of Ukrainian drones and artillery systems, and basically that made significant damage, of course, to the Russians. Ukrainians, at least according to their understanding, have prepared everything and started that offensive operation. Basically, the Ukrainians are moving from Makarovka in direction of Urozhaine, where the Russian forces started repelling that offensive operation. Of course, another attack will take place from Staromayorska to the south of Urozhaine as well. So they're going to be support attack. I'm not sure that Ukrainians are able to cross this river, but at least they can send their armored vehicles or light infantry to establish some fire control over the road that goes to Urozhaine. So the final battle of this bridgehead has started. Okay, now we're moving further, and when talking about let's say, Donetsk, we have discussed there were no updates from Klishchevka Bakhmut. There is a small operational post in this area. Just Ukrainians published few videos of bombing and shelling of the Russian positions. When talking about Kupinsk and Liman, also no changes, and when talking about Kupinsk, the Ukrainians also published some videos of bombing and shelling of Russian positions. during the Russian offensive operation in the vicinity of Sinkovka and Pershatravneva and Alshane. Also, the Russians published a video how they managed to redeploy a significant number of just created armored vehicles, T-90 tanks and BMP-3, the most modern type of weapon from the Russian side. The Russians managed to accumulate significant feast in this area, not just feast of infantry, but the feast, heavy feast, armored feast that can do a lot of things, and currently the Russians are able to penetrate this area and to complete the Battle of Kupiansk in the Russian favor. A lot of updates. That's it about the situation in Ukraine. Now let's talk a little bit about Africa, because we also got a lot of update from this bridgehead. First of all, if you remember, a few days ago we discussed that the Nigerian Senate, that the president of Nigeria asked permission of Nigerian Senate to start intervention in the direction of Niger. But as you can see, according to the information I have, the Nigerian Senate rejects the army's military intervention in Niger under ECOWAS mandate. But this is not the most important update. The most important is that, according to information we have, that the Wagners started redeployment in direction of Niger, and currently they will complete this redeployment process by the 10th of August. So if you remember, Prigozhin promised that he will return back on the 5th of August, and basically that happened. The Wagners returned on the 5th of August, but not in the territory of Ukraine, but in the territory of Niger. And the first squads and first forces have already arrived in that country, and the Russians have already redeployed the reconnaissance teams, the control teams, the support teams, and so on. And now they start building their infrastructure from scratch, and the Wagners are already ready to start defending this country. And furthermore, the Niger authorities gives France 30 days to vacate the country in accordance with the agreements that these countries have. So they ask them to move their forces, their infantry, from the territory of Niger. And if they're not going to do this, I believe that Wagners will help them to do this. Also, there was a call between the authorities of Algiers and of authorities of Algeria with the European Union. I know that according to information I have, that if there are going to be some clashes, the only normal stable way to support Niger is going to take place through Algeria. And if somehow the Western countries are able to cut Algeria's supply road, then of course Niger will fall, as I understand, and the Western countries will be able to restore, let's say, the power in this country. So everything depends on Algeria. If the Russians are able to hold Algeria under their control, under the area of their influence, then there is no problems to save control over Niger. But if Algeria falls under Western pressure, then there are going to be a lot of problems in Niger. So something like this. And that's it for today. Military Summary channel reminds we condemn any violence in the world. Thank you for watching. Subscribe to my channel, put your likes, join my Patreon, and have a good day. Bye bye.